Hello, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. This is Renee Bird, and I am so excited to introduce a new guest on the Who Am I Talk. I just want to find out how everyone's doing. In London, there's been loads of things happening. We haven't thankfully been put under lockdown, so I'm very happy, but we've had to tighten restrictions. In America, still in the situation as it's always been. Hello to everyone that's joined. I'm very excited. This is an amazing talk show. I'm really excited. I've had some really amazing guests. Now, this particular guest, he is a pillar of society. His name is Leroy Logan MBE. Yes, he is. He is a friend of the family, so I should really call him Uncle. I'm absolutely blessed to have him on my show today to talk about his story. He has, he's got a Hollywood actor playing his life story, and he's got an amazing book, which I had to support. It's called Closing Ranks. I'm so proud of him. And it talks about his journey and him as a police officer, a superintendent. Yeah. An amazing pillar of society. So he's soon to join, but I thought I'd let everyone come because this is going to be a great talk. I'm so excited to hear all about his story. His book, which actually was released on the 17th of this month, and I'm really excited. So I will be sharing that on the swipe up so you can support and read his story. It's very, very exciting. I just received it yesterday, so I read the preface and I really can't wait to get stuck in. But we're going to hear about his story this evening, ladies and gentlemen. So if you just bear with me, and as soon as 7:30 hits, I'm sure I'll see him pop up. How's everyone doing? Everyone okay? I hope everyone's fine. I saw in London it was raining. I was like, oh dear, we're moving into the fall season, into autumn. But you never know what could happen. The weather changes all the time over here, so it could be sunny next week. And I haven't yet taken out or put my summer clothes back. I intend not to do that just yet. So yes, I'm very excited about my new guest. Very excited, Mr. Leroy Logan MBE, an amazing pillar of society in the UK. He's done incredible things. He's a social commentator. You would have seen him many times on the TV talking about the police force, race relations, everything. So it's really exciting to have him join me this evening. So I'm just patiently waiting for my special guest. So just waiting for everyone to join little by little. And how's everyone doing? Everyone been okay? I can't believe we're in October. How time goes. I still can't believe it. Time has literally just whizzed past. I think one day merges into another, doesn't it now? So I never know what day it is. But we have to be grateful and thankful that we're all healthy. That's really important right now. And just look forward to the future, you know. So, yeah, very excited. So, yes, very, very soon I should see him pop up so we can join in a great conversation to hear all about his story. And his book is called Closing Ranks by Leroy Logan, and it's my life as a cop. Absolutely exciting. So yeah, he's a great man. I've seen him as I've been growing up and watched him on TV, seen him at many events speaking. So today I've got the opportunity to share his story with you. So I'm just patiently waiting. This is a live IG live, so it takes a little bit of time, but very soon I should see him appear. Yeah, so nothing much has really been going on in my world. Always very busy. I can see him. Hello, Leroy. Very, very blessed, and thank you so much for joining me today. So I'm just going to wait for you to ask to request to join, and we can have a good chat any minute now. See if I can do it. Maybe I might be able to. Let's see. Yeah, I see him here. Brilliant. Any minute now. says waiting. It will connect very soon. It's just, you know, sometimes when it's the internet can be really slow. Instagram doing its thing. It will connect eventually. I might click off, and then if you can request to join my live, I think I'm going to try that way as well. Nothing's happened, so let me try that way. If you can request to join my live, Leroy. Oh, brilliant. Let's try this way. Sometimes it works out better that way. Thank you. Here he is. Hello.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm here. Sorry, not only am I a bit of a technophobe, so I'm not into this Insta stuff.
It's okay. And I have to say with respect, Uncle Leroy, my dad sends his love. The family send their love to you, the Francis family.
Great,
so it's so good to have you. So good to have you.
Yes,
you are.
Send my love to them as well. Send my love to them
I will, definitely. I will. I have nothing but, you've inspired me growing up. I've seen you on the television. I've seen you speak, and to hear your story. I've got your book. I'm supporting you, Closing Ranks.
Oh, thank you.
Really excited for you, and really happy to have you on my show called the Who Am I Talk. Just to give you a bit of background about the talk, it's since March of early this year, just before COVID hit. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I released a single and COVID hit, and obviously the campaign was frozen. And I thought to myself, I have a great platform, I'm going to use it for purpose. And since then, I've interviewed many people in the public eye and let them share their story. So it's been a fantastic journey thus far. And then to have you on is even more exciting. So thank you.
Yeah, no, actually, it's really great to be here. And I just think COVID has brought out so many great things in people, and challenging as it is, you know, it's given us a chance to reflect and really dig deep and sort of uncover hidden talents and experiences which we didn't really envisage. So it's really good that I'm part of that experience.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very, very grateful. And you have an amazing story. Wow, you've had many years in the police force. You were former superintendent. That's a very high ranking. And I know you're from Jamaica originally, and I come from there too, so we share commonality. Okay. I would love to hear your story. When did it all begin?
Well, I local London lad, born in Islington, and sort of spent most of my informative years there. Even though I had a primary school stage, I went back to Jamaica. Well, my mother went back and took my sister, myself, there. So I was able to live in Spanish Town in Jamaica for a few years, primary school, which I really enjoyed. Loved the weather because it was such a difference to the weather in London, which is a bit drab in those days. We used to have a lot of fogs and really heavy winters. And yeah, I must admit, I enjoyed it because my London accent was a bit of a novelty. So that they loved to hear me talk. In fact, I used to really milk it so that they would pay me to talk with my best London accent, you know. Really? And they used to call me Deacon because I used to hold church. So I'd have all the youngsters in the compound. It's a large compound area, and everyone had their small little apartments in that compound area. And my mother always used to be saying, "Leroy, come inside. Enough for church." And because I had all of the youngsters surrounded me, and I was talking about London and what it was like, and you know, and they were captivated by it. So you never know, I might go back to my my orator days of a youngster. So yeah, that was really great. And then I came back to London, finished off my education, went to Hyde Grove School, where I did my GCSEs or O levels it was then. So I'm a Gooner. So, you know.
Oh, okay, of course. Yeah. I am too.
Yeah, oh, excellent. Another commonality. No, because in that school, if you sort of supported any other team than Arsenal, get ready to fight. because especially if it's Tottenham up the road.
Yeah. Oh dear. Boo.
You get into trouble and you'd just be constantly fighting. So that's the only thing I acquiesced in life, was the support of my local football team, because my pain threshold's too low. So I ain't going to be fighting and all that, messing around. So yeah, so Guna, and it so happens that was my first borough when I became a police officer. It was in Islington, so I got to know the area, and sometimes I'd be arresting people I knew, which was really
uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I mean, the good thing is that I think they recognise why I was there. I was there to make a difference, and I was still, I made it clear that I'm a black man who happens to be a cop, and so now I'm retired. I'm a black man, so that means I integrated in the organisation and not assimilate to adopt the norms and values of the culture. So I was able to stand on my own 2 feet, really.
I read something saying that your father was beaten up quite badly by the police. Was that one of the catalysts that what made you want to go into the police force, so there's visibility of someone that looks like you and can protect others?
Well, it was and it wasn't, because I didn't want anything to happen to my father, or any of my family, my mother and everyone else. But no, it was totally a real shock, because I'd already applied to join the Met, and again, that was so many different inputs, because I was, when I finished my degree, science degree, I was doing research, scientific research at the Royal Free Hospital, and that's in Hampstead, because it moved from Islington to Hampstead. And I remember thinking, well, that's my career path. But because I was starting to meet officers who used to use our leisure facilities, our bar and our gym and everything, I got to know the personal side of white officers. Whereas before, my experience of white officers, especially when I came back from Jamaica, was very negative. Through the sus law in the 60s and 70s, it was really, really bad. So I didn't have a real love for police. And they used to bug my dad, because he was a lorry driver, and there was always, reporting him for one traffic offence or another. And it was in respect of a traffic offence that officers beat him up, because I was at the Royal Free working. I got a call that, he'd been beaten up by police officers over a traffic matter. And he was 57, so it wasn't like he was a young man, and he was never that type of person, very easygoing. He was very clear on his views, but he would never be aggressive. And, they beat him black and blue, literally. And I got the call, rushed from Royal Free to the Whittington in Islington. And, I found out, I actually walked past him because I didn't recognize him. He was so badly beaten up. And I said, if I didn't want to smell or taste hate like I did, because I must admit, I would not be this side of prison bars, because I could have just lost it. And when I got that call, I'd actually been applied for the Met. I was waiting for a date in June of '83 to go in. So I was really taken aback. I thought, no, forget that. I'm not going to do it. But people said, listen, and similar to what you just said, maybe that's the reason why you should join. You've got to be in it to change it. And so I continued with that career path, and I joined in June of 1983. Wow.
And continue it, you did. You didn't just become a normal ranking, you became a superintendent, which is the highest.
Yeah, well, and it's not just about the rank.
Phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be twice as good as your white counterparts to even put yourself forward, and of course to advance down up the ranks. It's not as, it's very tough, even if you're white. So as a black man, I had to be double thorough, double experienced, and doubly confident, because it's a very can-do, success-driven organization. And from the first time I went for the sergeant's exams, I knew that I've got my work cut out here. And it was very challenging, because a lot of people said, well, you only joined the Met because you're black. You wouldn't have got in otherwise. So I had to prove them wrong. You know, even though I was older than most of them, I was 26 when I joined. Most of them were teenagers. And I found that, you know, when I told them that I'm married, I got my first child, and, you know, I had a profession before that. It wasn't the only thing I could do. You know, it sort of made them think, it's a bit suspicious. And then when I passed the sergeant's exams, my dad's civil case was suing the officers in respect of the assault on him. It took about 6-7 years by then, and he sued them successfully for excessive force and unlawful arrest. And I turned up in uniform at the court, and some of the officers recognized me because they were local officers to where we lived. And as I said, Islington was my local area where I started. So they thought, wow, you know, we're involved in a black sergeant's dad. You know, they got the wrong guy.
Completely.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
And you know, they obviously the word went round that I was standing up for my father, regardless what uniform I was, and that put me in this guy's a troublemaker. But I was a great believer of causing good trouble, you know, wherever I was, speaking up for people, advocating on their behalf, and especially the black community who felt, you know, devalued and ostracized by the police. So I was there to be that conduit, and, you know, I'm still doing it now in retirement.
What's so powerful, you know, you speak about when you started, and we're now in 2020, and, you know, this year has been quite synonymous for various reasons. From the pandemic, we've living in a time which we never dreamed we would, and then we have the Black Lives Matter movement that I witnessed things that I never dreamt I would as well. And has things changed? Have they? How can we be in this place? I mean, I've just read a news bite that Breonna Taylor, they indicted the officer.
Yeah.
But how long, you know, how long did that take for that to happen? Obviously, the American system is very different to the UK, but it feels like there's still that tension. I would like to think in this time we would have moved forward. There's people integrating, there's relationships, there's connections, but there's still something that is not being solved. And why do you feel that could be the case, if there's any answers to it?
No, I think one of the main answers is those in authority are in denial. They don't recognize that, you know, there are systemic failures in the organization. Because if you don't acknowledge it, you won't do something about it. I also think there needs to be independent oversight to make sure that police officers from the top right across the organization are held to account, and they're actually monitored about their achievements or not, you know, take into account the complaints, you know, when they have aggressive arrests, and, you know, how trust and confidence should be a factor when they're going for promotion. So if you are upsetting people, you can't go for promotion. So there has to be that independent oversight to closely monitor. Now, the mayor and the mayor's office for police and crime should do that, but they tend to rubber stamp more or less whatever the commissioner and the rest of the team says and does. But you need that critical distance. And that's what we tried to do with the Black Police Association I helped set up in '94 to hold the police to account. And, you know, we said at the McPherson inquiry that the Met Police was institutional racist. And, you know, with that came a lot of responsibility to hold the organization to account internally as well as externally. But, you know, that lobbying, that pressure group, that critical friend relationship is not there. And I would like to think that they can regain that through the Black Police Association, other, you know, independent forums to hold the police to account. Because if you leave it to themselves, they'll mark themselves up and say how great we are. That's why the commissioner can say, oh, institutional racism is no longer applicable. But really? Prove it. All the evidence shows quite the opposite. You've even shelved the Stephen Lawrence case and said it's not going to be investigated. You know, that's like giving the 3 suspects that still need to face trial a stay out of jail free card, you know, and it's just not on. And it's those sort of things, especially with this Black Lives Matter movement, it's the worst thing you could do. And I tweeted to that effect, and I hear that she's not very happy. But you've got to speak truth to power.
You do. Change only happens when there's an uncomfortable moment. It's just how it has to be. And you think of all the people on the spearhead leaders that have made change over time, it's always been through something and force. We have to. You know, you spoke about certain your Black Police Association, and I remember that was very instrumental in the Stephen Lawrence campaign. It was very heart-wrenching to watch what happened in that case, and it's almost like we all know the answer, but it just wasn't acted out. We, you know, as you say, these people are walking around, and it's very clear, open and shut case of what occurred. And thank goodness for your association to at least give the voice that it was necessary. And, you know, unfortunately, in those circumstances, there's sacrifices to make change. All the things that we've seen, you know, George Floyd, that poor man, what he went through, but look what he created. It was a volcano erupted, and people said no more. And now we're seeing things happening in this country, which has a foundation to a lot of things that we can speak about in another IG Live. Now we're getting things hopefully being recognized. They're acknowledging what has occurred in this country and what it stands for and things that have happened. But we have to keep pushing to go that much further. Even in this season, we were witnessing people who are political, who were public figures in sports, that were being stopped and searched very aggressively. And then they were like, I am this, and they're like, we don't care. So there's clearly something about when they are in the atmosphere of people of color that they react very differently.
Yeah, well,
I just don't understand.
A lot of officers, especially in London, don't come from London. They come from outside London. So they're not used to Black people. And unfortunately, the image of Black men in particular is normally a sort of ogre figure to be feared and to be controlled. And the media have really purported that. So some people who are vulnerable to that sort of message can automatically have an adversarial stance with Black people, even before they come into London, even before they put on the uniform. And the culture perpetuates that, keeps it going, you know, because I remember when I was told I was going to Islington, they said, that's all right, mate. But when I had a colleague saying, you're going to Hackney, he said, oh, you got to be careful, you know, a lot of those Blacks out there, you know, you got to be careful. And I said to the young man who was going to Hackney, I said, listen, I went to college there. I did my A-levels there. There's some great people there. I've got relatives who live on the ground. I have friends and you know, long-term acquaintances. So there's no fear there. But, you know, that's how you can easily get indoctrinated by the culture. I call it a form of internal radicalization, where, you know, they get this extreme view and an extreme approach to Black people, in particular Black men. And that's why you see them being very aggressive. And even with this Black Lives Matter and the fact that everyone's got a mobile phone and they've got body cams, which they should switch on, they still carry on with the aggressiveness, putting on handcuffs, rolling around the ground. Do you know, I never did all that. There's one thing about me, the last thing I want to do is roll around the ground with someone and dirty up the uniform, because I want to look just as good as the start of the shift
as you end the shift.
Exactly the same at the end of the shift. And I don't want anyone, you know, I'm got to, so that means you build your skills to talk your way, not into a situation, but also out of it. And, you know, sometimes you have to be firm with someone, especially if you have to arrest them, you know, have you got the evidence for that? Then it means that you have to quite clearly deal with them. And, you know, sometimes it does involve that, but not just a stop and search. You know, sometimes people overreact, you let them calm down and you say, listen, this is what I've got. And it has to be intelligence-led. When people think you're undermining their intelligence and saying, you smell weed, or, you know, you look like a suspect in a robbery, and, you know, the description could be 90% of Black men, you know, jeans, a hoodie and a hat, you know. I mean, I don't know how many times I could have got stopped, you know, because I'm wearing a hat and a hoodie. So these are sort of things that they've got to really tie down properly and say, listen, if you're going to stop people, make sure it's evidence-based, intelligence from a good, reliable source, and not a fishing expedition.
No, definitely. I mean, I have always encouraged I've got 3 brothers to understand the law, to have diplomacy, to have etiquette, to be elegant in your approach when you are accosted by the law, but to know your rights. And what are some of the key things? I remember PACE, to know that police stop and search, you know, what can they stop and what can they say? And what are your rights as a minor? a lot of people don't even know the basics. So when they do encounter, their natural reaction is, because we're quite flamboyant characters, people of color, we're quite animated, sometimes it could be misconstrued. But what do you think could be a good way to some key points, a few ideas of what we could do as young people? What can we do when we are stopped?
Well, I mean, that's one of the key components of a course that I helped set up in 2001. It was firstly through the Black Police Association Charitable Trust, but it's now called Voyage Youth. And one of the key programs we roll out is called Young Leaders for Safer Cities. And we used to do it pan-London before austerity kicked in about 2010, 11. So we're normally in sort of northeast London. And what we do is I do the trust and confidence component. And for many years, the young people say they feel over-policed and underprotected. And I said, well, you need to work with police, especially if you get stopped and searched. So we go through an acronym called GO-WISE. So we say to them, the officer needs to be going through this process. So GO, the G is the grounds. Why are they stopping you? So they should say, well, listen, we got information that someone matching your description has just come out of that shop, and the shopkeeper said that someone matching your description might be in possession of, let's say, some cigarettes they've taken. Okay, so that's G. O is the object, the cigarettes they're looking for. And then the officer, whether they're in uniform or not, they should have a warrant card, which is the ID. So that's the W for WISE. So W, warrant card. And then I is their identity. So the officer should give their name, and they should have a number on their shoulder. Sometimes, because of the rank they hold, they don't need to have the numbers, but you can go by the emblems on the top of their shoulder. It might be pips, it might be a crown. As a superintendent, I had a crown. That's why my street name was called Crowns.
Okay.
Which is good. It's nice to have a street name adopted in that way. So I must be doing something right. And then, so it's WI, identity is the warrant card. The name, which is I, the identity. S is the station attached. I'm from Stoke-Newington Police Station. And then E is the entitlement to the stop record. So Go Wide is one of the key things we put in that Young Leaders for Safer Cities, which is a BTEC level 2 for year 9. So they actually get UCAS points even before they start the GCSEs. And we realize we have to give back as officers, so young people know their rights, responsibilities, and let them believe they can stop, a lot of the negative interaction with police, build relationships with the police, and build positive peer-to-peer mentoring. So that's something we realize. Education is the key. Pass that on to our young people so they know their rights, and hopefully don't feel a victim of the system. And as I said, it's been going since 2001. It's our 20th anniversary next year. And, we're really pleased. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And we've had some really amazing young people take part in it. You may have heard of Simon Brown in Channel 4 News. He's a journalist for The Guardian as well. He took part in our 2004 program. We've got a Dr. Kanar Mohammed. She's been on the COVID hotline. She's now a GP. She took part in our 2005 program. So it's great when you see people who've grown up, they got their own children. And what really touches my heart is when they say, well, we actually tell our children some of the basic principles you told us. And, they want their children to start doing the program in the future. So that for me is the real legacy. That's the real jewel in the crown.
No, that's an absolute jewel. And I'm going to share that with my audience. I think it's really important to know the law, to keep on the side of the law, and also be confident if you are stopped, and know how to correspond, and show the police that there are different levels of individuals and articulations. They have an impression. They have the same scenario where you'll wear a tracksuit and you'll wear a suit. It's the same person, but they would automatically stop you because you've got on running attire, and actually you're driving a sports car because you're a city boy. But they have to stop framing and having these stereotypical views of what they envisage a black person to be or a black man to be. So I think what you guys are doing is going to definitely reshape the way of thinking and help the youngsters to feel empowered. Because, you know, that you hear these stories of stop and search. I think the numbers are unbelievable. I've never heard of such a thing. They're high. You know, someone said I've been stopped 20 times, 20 times in a week. That's ridiculous.
I know. And in fact, the Met has always had this historical propensity to stop and search, even though they're one of 43 force areas, and by far the biggest, to be fair. But they account for half of all the stop and searches across the country, around 300,000 stops and searches every year. So the Met has got this gung-ho, enforcement-driven type of approach compared to other force areas around the country. But you know, these sort of things, when they're independent oversight, that used to cut that down. Even Theresa May, when she was Home Secretary, she was doing a lot around stop and search, and that sort of kept them at bay. Because officers are very quick to say, well, in my experience, stop and search is very important to reduce knife crime. There is no evidence, even Home Secretary, the Home Office researchers actually say, there is no evidence to suggest when stop and search goes down, knife crime goes up. Nothing of that nature. But they like to say, oh, in our experience. Well, in my 30 years experience, I know what really helps to reduce knife crime and violence is early intervention and prevention programs. You need to build back those community cups, build back those safer schools officers, build bridges back with the target group. Let them feel safe. Because if anyone, whether young or old, black or white, if the police officers can't make them feel safe, they're not going to report anything to police because you can't make them feel safe. They're not going to come up with a statement or go to an ID parade or even give evidence at court. Because if you can't keep them feel safe, they're not going to go through the justice system. So they go through the street justice system. And that's how people can get caught into the whole street nomadic lifestyle, which can lead up to a gangs. And before you know it, they're doing all sorts of madness and crazy things. So that's where police need to be relevant. They have to be culturally competent and connected with communities in a way that, you know, they are there for people to make them feel safe. And until they get that right, you know, because even the Home Secretary who started the Met Police in 1829, he said something really profound. The police are the public and the public are the police. And it's just as relevant almost 200 years ago as it is now. Yeah. And officers need to get that through their very, very blinkered view. They need to open up their minds, work with communities, regardless their color or class, and understand they can only police and make safe areas in partnership with the community.
No, I think you've said it. I don't think there's any other way that we can do it. And I think, you know, as you said, the youth centres closed. There's certain things that were happening around, which was basically pushing certain demographics and certain crimes to occur more. And then the police were mishandling the way they were policing. And then, as you said, they're on the street, they keep quiet, no one's speaking. Then they've got an unsolved case. No one's going to tell you what happened. You know, exactly. They will just, because they don't feel there's any protection. They don't feel that if they was to share that something could happen to them. So they're actually shooting themselves in the foot, really, because they're not realizing you've got to go to source and build that bridge, maintain that relationship. At the moment, when you see the high profile cases, people don't believe in the police force as much as they used to. They just don't.
I know. And that's the sad environment and indictment. It's a real sad indictment. And in fact, I've been saying publicly for the last few years that I get a sense that policing is like a pre-McPherson, pre-Stephen Lawrence era, the whole look and feel of it. And I know some of it is around austerity and reducing police numbers and that sort of firefighter type of policing. But, you know, senior officers in the Met and other force areas need to bring back that citizens-focused approach, working with communities, understand their community well, get the best out of that relationship. And as I said, early intervention and prevention programs, realizing that, especially in certain deprived areas, especially crime hotspot areas, some of our young people are suffering from adverse childhood experiences, toxic stress, wider community stress because of what they have to go through on a day-to-day basis. So officers should be looking at people as not just potential prisoners. It might be they are a patient. They need advice. So that's why we have to bring in a triage approach. It's called the public health approach, to say, listen, officers don't necessarily have to go into an antisocial behavior or a mental health challenge case or a drug psychosis case. You know, it might be better to bring in a paramedic or a social worker, and that's what the whole sort of defunding the police issue is all about. It's not about cutting police, it's just realigning their assets. And so officers have a more focused approach on what they are there to do, and not just reacting and going into situations and making it worse.
No, that's really important what you've said, because I have a real opinion of the social economic start or situation of an individual. You know, I studied elements of law when I was at university, but I always used to struggle with it because it's just black and white. But there's so much more to why a crime is committed. Not to say crime should be committed, but there's a background to it. And you need to, as I say, massage and heal that element of that person. When you hear the stories, or they call the disposition, or when you read the papers of the court case and see their background, you're like, my goodness, the pain and what they were going through, this is what the reaction to it is. So we really do need to, as I said, the solution, we need to treat the wounds of these people. So when they do, sadly, they do normally get incarcerated, but when they come out, hopefully they're healed to be better. Because otherwise they just go full circle and then back in again.
And the repeat offending piece is so bad. You know, once someone does offend and it reduces their life choices, they can go back into that vicious cycle time and time again. And I think it's just, again, recognizing the cultural challenges that certain communities are going through and getting the best out of them, and just, you know, don't go into assumptions and stereotypes. Work with people in a way that you dealing with them at a level. You're not just looking down at them and just seeing them as outcasts. You need to work with them. And most officers, I truly believe, have a positive sort of approach, and they want a positive outcome. But sometimes, you know, in the heat of the moment, they can lose that sort of objectivity. And, you know, it's important that they don't fall into that sort of cultural gung-ho type of approach. And I talk about that in the book. And it's really, you know, for me, trying to get people to understand why some people join the police. You know, unfortunately, we do have elements who would join because it's a control power dynamic. You know, some of them are on a power trip. Majority are not, but sometimes they can get caught up into that whole sort of you know, network of people saying, well, you know, we've got to be strong. It's them and us. You know, we won't allow them to you know, get the best of us, and so forth. I must admit, in my 30 years, I ain't got time for that. I used to patrol on my own. I didn't have people trying to tell me, oh, you're going to go in hard, and, you know, no, I'm going to work with people, you know. And in fact, my CEO of Voyage Youth, he was a youngster in Islington, was a recruit, a probationary cop. And he used to be my worst nightmare. He was always calling me Judas and coconut and this and that. And I think he just wanted me to arrest him, you know, or try and chase him down. Even though at the time I was pretty fit, I used to run for the Met for hurdles and, you know, football and stuff like that. So, but I made it into banter. So if you call me Judas, I said, how do you know my middle name's Judas? You know, and I didn't react to it. And as you say, don't build up to the animation and all the histrionics that go with it. Let them calm down and say, okay, well, now you calm down. Can we have a conversation, please? You know, and so you've got to have that cultural understanding, that shared and common experience. And that's what I did with my officers who went in to assist with the Damilola Taylor investigation. You know, black officers were able to go into that environment, get so much more information from the house-to-house inquiries, whereas previously when white officers went to the door, they wouldn't even open the door to them. But the black officers would speak to them in their local language, so it's Yoruba or any sort of language, you know, they would speak to them and let them feel, the police are there for them. And that built that bond. And so they felt secure, and we were able to identify the witnesses and the suspects, and that led to the conviction. So, you know, that's what we need to do, that affinity policing, recognizing the life skills of those officers. And that's why we need a more reflective police service, so that they look like London that they're serving, and treat those officers well, because there's an inextricable link. If you're in a better position to serve the needs of your diverse personnel, then you can serve the needs of a diverse public. And that there's that link, and, you know, one follows the other and vice versa. So I think all of these things really need to be reformed and looked at. So we've got a police service for the 21st century.
No, it's really, I mean, you spoke about that in your book, and I tell everyone to definitely join in and understand and see what the future holds. And your story, your faith had a lot to do with your development. I come from a Christian family, so that's been very much a foundation for me to help me put things in perspective. If I call it a hand grenade moment, when I'm really mad, I can pray.
Exactly. Exactly.
That really helps put things into perspective. So faith to you, you speak about it in the book. Talk to me about your faith. Obviously, from a Jamaican family, church was a must.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, my mother's always singing hymns, and in fact, I've got a Bible upstairs, and you know, and it's one of these real yay thick Bibles, you know, she'd read from it, and you know, it just set the boundaries. And I remember my parents saying to me, please don't allow any police come to my house. You know, so I didn't want to disappoint them in any way, because they meant the world to me. They were great parents from both my sister and myself, and they set a foundation which I could build. And as a result of, you know, their nurturing and support, and, you know, being God-fearing people, I was able to join the organization of Met Police in a way that my faith was like an anchor. It gave me the resilience. So even if I had pushbacks and people trying to derail me from, you know, the focus that I had, I would navigate through. It made me a lot more tenacious. It made me understand I could be even better than my white counterparts. I had to be more excellent. And, you know, that sort of resilience and excellence mix gave me that strength to push through. And I remember the first 2 years was the toughest time I had. I had one of the most hardest reporting sergeants. He was notorious for making the lives of probationary constables worse. And I think if you can treat other police officers like that, I'm not surprised he treats the members of the public bad. And, you know, he's consistently, I think he just didn't like people. Anyway, you know, he made my life absolutely horrendous. I thought, but if I can get through the 2 years with him, I can do the other 28. And that's what happened. And, you know, even a pushback with the Black Police Association, I realized that my faith made it clear to me that this was advancing God's kingdom. This was not just about, you know, putting pressure on the organization. We've got to shed a light on the Met, so that, you know, people understand why they do certain things. And I like to think the book does that, gives it a lens similar to what we did with the Macpherson inquiry, shine a light in areas of the Met where it wouldn't be seen. And even when I got investigated, you know, I knew it was coming. You know, the Lord told me straight, watch what happens. Whenever you put your head above the parapet, you're going to be on someone's target. So I was ready for it, and I was equipped. So, you know, I remember my youngest son, he was 10 at the time, and he said, Dad, are you going to prison because you've been investigating it? Because it's all in the media, you know, it's trial by media. And I said, no, Miles, don't worry. It will work its way out. But, you know, just to keep my composure, I had to show, you know, that I still had the joy in my heart, a smile on my face. They weren't going to grind me down. They weren't going to wear me out. I was going to push through. And fortunately, that was the case. And I was able to finish my career on a high, doing the Olympic Games and the security around that 2012 event.
That's amazing. And you've got another win, which is due to come out in autumn, by a Hollywood star. Tell me about this. I was so, you must have been, how did it happen?
Well,
It's
it
amazing.
happened in 2016, actually, 4 years ago. I got
Okay.
approached by Steve McQueen, the director of 12 Years a Slave, and his
Oh,
people sort of
wow.
approached me and they said, listen, we're looking at some stories of Caribbean people who have, excelled in their field, and it should be a person who is active or around in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So I thought, well, I'm old enough for that. So, and they really liked my story, especially the fact that I still pushed through to join the Met, even though my dad had been beaten up by them. And I remember going for lunch with Steve, and he said, "Listen, I still can't get my head around. Why would you still join the Met? You say you love your dad,
Oh,
right? You love your dad,
yeah.
and they beat you up. Why are you still joining?" And he's from Grenada, so he's got his Grenadian accent sort of coming out strong now. I mean, gosh, this guy's he's like he's trying to look into my soul, And
Yeah.
I said, well, it's my faith. He said, why didn't you tell me that in the first place? I don't know, because obviously that you have to put that through the script and the characters, and then we found out after we start to get into the script that John Boyega of Star Wars fame wanted
That's amazing.
to play the part, and that was great. I mean, it's not like he went looking for him, but I think it's Steve's got some real pull appeal. He pulls
Cool.
people in, especially doing a TV drama. And my story is one of 5 episodes of a series called
Okay.
Small Acts. And the Mangrove 9, that's already got a lot of love. And Lovers Rock, that's another episode that's getting a lot of response.
Yeah.
And it's been such an organic situation because so many people I know have taken part in it, whether it's as extras or behind the camera. They even the music, and I know people who've been involved in the music. And when I went on the set where they were filming up in Wolverhampton, because there's not many places in London look like London in the 70s and 80s, whereas there's certain areas in the Midlands that look very period piece, And I remember going up there and we met someone. I haven't seen this guy in years, and he said, "Hey, man, I hear John Boyega's sort of acting your part," and that was so fantastic. And then another thing that happened, because they looked at some of my pictures and they said, "Where do you get these clothes from?" I said, "Listen, I was blessed that when I went to school, my tailor went to school with me. His name's Charlie Allen. Big up Charlie Allen. He's still got his shop in Upper Street in Islington. It makes some mean suits, so trust me, he's still got the knack. I still buy suits off him." And they said, "Well, how do you get these suits?" I said, "Well, contact Charlie." So it was such a surreal moment to see pictures of Charlie measuring up John Boyega in some of my outfits,
That's amazing.
And that's all. So it's a real family feel, and because they weren't supposed to use our names in the script, it was supposed to be different people or different names, but it's only when I went up to the set and I thought, "Oh, they got my name here." And they said, "Yeah, we kept your name." So my best friend Lee John, he's in there. He's from Imagination.
Imagination. Yeah, I remember.
He's part of it. Obviously, my wife Gretel, she's part of it. And it's my sister Hyacinth. Big up Hyacinth, you're tuning in. It was really such an amazing experience, very surreal. I couldn't have, made this up in my wildest dreams. And I truly believe it's a divine intervention that it was able to come at this time, which is so important around, people knowing their rights, responsibilities, to take advantage of the Black Lives Matter movement, and not just make it a moment. It has to be a sustainable movement, and bring everyone's consciousness into these issues. That's why we're seeing statues being taken down. I'm not into pulling down statues, but take them down, change names of slave owners, or even up to today, you see these things happening. And this is where I think your generation really needs to keep going, because I feel reassured that your generation is able to say, yeah, we can take on the baton now. We got people knowing what they have to do and collaborate and really know that they make irreversible change.
No, wow, how powerful. You such an inspiration, Leroy Logan. I am inspired. I know when this program comes out, the world are going to get to know who you are. And yes, they should have done a film, movie, a book, everything about you. Because you're the one, as you said, have laid that foundation. You set that mantle, and it is up to us now. Really, you know, the next generation, myself, my younger brothers, we have to lay and build that legacy. So when everyone moves on to glory, there's some changes that have occurred, you know?
Yeah.
You can look back.
Well, I tell you, in closing, for me, there's something that's really important. I don't want my grandchildren and their generation to grow up in the same inequalities and injustices that my children's generation have gone through, and even my generation. I don't want to see my grandchildren, and you know, they're all under 10. I want them to grow up knowing they can be judged by their content and their character, by, you know, and their abilities in a meritocracy, and they are not going through the inequalities and injustices that, you know, we've seen play itself out with Windrush, you know, and the Windrush generation, what they went through. And my parents came over in that same generation, and we stand strong on their shoulders. And we need to make sure that, you know, the future generations are feeling equipped to deal with all the other challenges like climate change and various other things. And, you know, they got to know that they have an equitable world in which they can strive and not just survive. They got to strive.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. In closing, I think I agree. I feel change is coming. I think there's something happening in the air. You know, there's this a natural mystic, as Bob Marley used to say.
Yeah.
There's something happening, and I don't think the pedal is going to be pushed away. It's going to keep pushing. We are in a different space. I think the pandemic enabled us to think. We went in ourselves. We reflected. And I don't think we're ever going to go back. I really believe this is it now.
Well, and you know, even the name of Steve McQueen's series called Small Axe. You know, you might be a big tree, but we have a small axe. You might think we're small, but we can really bring you down if you don't want to work with us. So, you know, it doesn't matter how high and mighty you are. And that's what we're seeing through COVID. Some people thought they're untouchable. They, you know, they can't do anything wrong. But COVID's laid bare those things that, you know, all these false securities they had, and, you know, where are they now? And they used to look down on people, you know, and the ones who have not had much are excelling, you know, and people are saying, well, listen, it doesn't matter what happens to you, it's how you deal with it. And I'm seeing the real determination, tenacity of people saying, yep, I'm going to deal with this and make a success of it.
No, definitely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so inspirational, knowledgeable. I've been seeing loads of hearts, people trying to join.
Yeah, I'm seeing that as well.
Loads of people speaking and thinking. You are definitely a legacy builder. I'm excited for your book. I will be sharing that, Closing Ranks, and I cannot wait to see the program. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm looking forward to it. I still haven't seen it. It's a close to Guy's secret. Hopefully they'll do a private viewing or something, depending on the COVID situation. But, you know, I really think it then gives us a springboard going into 2021. And, you know, the world's our oyster.
It is. And thank you so much. And God bless you, your family. And I hope to see you very soon in the flesh. I know the world has changed, so we got all this social distancing stuff. So hopefully see you soon. And
absolutely.
God bless you.
I'm not going anywhere. I'll still be here.
Definitely. God bless you, Leroy. Speak to you soon.
Cheers. Bye now.
Bye. Bye.
How do I disconnect?